On June 17, 1939, in Versailles, France, a large crowd gathered just before dawn outside the city's prison. They were there to witness a public event that had long been a part of French history, the execution of a criminal. But this particular execution would be different. It would be the last time France ever allowed such an event to happen in public. The man at the center of it all was Eugene Weidmann, a notorious serial killer. Over the course of a year, Weidmann had committed a series of brutal murders, luring his victims with promises of business deals before robbing and killing them. His most infamous crime was the murder of an American dancer, Jean de Coven, which shocked not just France, but the world. His capture and trial were highly publicized, and the nation demanded justice. The night before the execution, the crowd began to gather. By 1 a.m., the atmosphere was thick with nervous anticipation. People were murmuring. Some were drinking to calm their nerves, while others stood quietly, waiting. The execution was scheduled to take place before sunrise to prevent the media from capturing clear photographs. But as time dragged on, things inside the prison seemed delayed. Around 3 a.m., workers came out and assembled the guillotine in front of the crowd. The mood shifted. Seeing the guillotine up close was a grim reminder of what was about to happen. The crowd grew larger, and as dawn approached, journalists began preparing their cameras. The sun was rising, and it looked like the execution might happen in full daylight, something the authorities wanted to avoid. Finally, just before 5 a.m., the prison doors opened, and out came Eugene Weidmann. He was escorted by guards, his hands bound behind his back, and his head lowered. The crowd, which had grown restless, suddenly fell silent. Weidmann was led to the guillotine, where the executioners quickly and efficiently secured him in place. The crowd watched in hushed anticipation as Weidmann was positioned under the blade. In a swift mechanical motion, the guillotine was triggered, and with a sharp metallic sound, the blade fell. Weidmann's life ended instantly. But what happened next shocked everyone. Instead of a solemn moment of justice, the scene descended into chaos. The crowd surged forward, desperate to see the body. Some even tried to collect Weidmann's blood as a gruesome keepsake. What had been intended as a sober display of justice had turned into a public frenzy. Journalists snapped photos as the sun rose higher, capturing the disturbing aftermath for all to see. The chaotic response to Weidmann's execution sparked a national debate. The French government was horrified by how the public had reacted. What was supposed to be a moment of closure for the victims' families became a spectacle of violence, with people treating the event like entertainment. As a result, just a few months later, France officially banned public executions. From that point on, all executions were carried out behind closed doors. This marked the end of a tradition that had lasted for centuries, and Eugene Weidmann's execution became a symbol of the darker side of public justice. Here's the infamous photo, taken just before Weidmann was executed, capturing the final moments of France's last public execution. And so the story of Eugene Weidmann serves as a reminder of the fine line between justice and spectacle. What began as a call for retribution ended in a moment of public frenzy, forcing society to rethink how it deals with capital punishment. During my researches, I have found the footage of this execution that has been filmed from two different angles, one from a balcony and one from the other side of the crowd. At the helm, Henri Desfourneaux, who succeeded Anatole Deibler that very year. Journalists did not fail to criticize his inexperience, as there was a brief pause between the closing of the lunette and the fall of the blade. However, during Anatole Deibler's time, he served as the assistant executioner. Behind the guillotine, it is André Obrecht who positions the condemned's head so that the neck is properly placed under the blade. He steps back before the fatal moment to avoid being splattered with blood. Let me know in the comments if you think public executions should have been banned sooner, or if they served a purpose. In the early 1900s, Eben Byers was living the dream. Born into extreme wealth, he had everything a man could want: fame, fortune, and influence. He was a Yale graduate, a successful businessman, and even a golf champion. His life seemed perfect. But an accident would soon send him down a path of tragedy, all thanks to a so-called miracle cure. This is the story of Eben Byers and the dangerous health product that destroyed his life. Radithor. In 1927, Byers was on a long train ride when he fell out of his sleeper bed, injuring his arm. At first, the injury didn't seem too serious, but the pain lingered. After consulting his doctor, Byers was introduced to a new product, a tonic called Radithor. This miracle cure was advertised as a way to relieve pain, boost energy, and improve overall health. What Byers didn't know was that Radithor's secret ingredient was radium, a highly radioactive element. At the time, radium was thought to have healing properties, and it was used in various health products. Doctors recommended it for all sorts of ailments, and it was marketed as a way to rejuvenate the body. So, Eben Byers, a man of great means, immediately embraced Radithor, thinking it would solve his problems and improve his life. At first, Byers felt incredible. After drinking Radithor, his arm pain disappeared, and he claimed to feel more energized and alive than ever before. Excited by the results, Byers began drinking more and more of the tonic. In fact, he was consuming 3 bottles a day for years, far beyond the recommended amount. But then, the effects of Radithor started to show. By 1931, Byers noticed something terrifying. His teeth began to fall out. His jaw started to deteriorate, and holes appeared in his skull. The radium that he had been drinking for years was poisoning him from the inside out. By the time doctors realized what was happening, it was too late. The damage was irreversible. His bones were crumbling, and large portions of his jaw had to be surgically removed. Despite these efforts, the radiation poisoning continued to eat away at his body. Byers' once healthy, vibrant appearance had become a shocking sight. He was now a shell of the man he once was, physically falling apart. In 1932, Eben Byers succumbed to the effects of radiation poisoning. His death made headlines around the world, serving as a tragic cautionary tale about the dangers of unregulated health products. The press dubbed Radithor a death tonic, and the public finally understood the horrors of radiation exposure. Radithor and similar products were quickly pulled from the market. Even after his death, Byers' story continued to shock the medical community. In 1965, scientists exhumed his body, and incredibly, they found that his bones were still highly radioactive, more than 30 years after he died. It became clear that radium had a much longer-lasting effect than anyone had ever imagined. Byers was buried in a lead-lined coffin to contain the radiation, a grim reminder of the dangers that once seemed like a miracle cure. Here's a rare photo of Eben Byers, taken shortly before his death, showing the devastating effects of Radithor on his once healthy body. Eben Byers' story highlights the danger of blindly trusting so-called miracle cures, especially when they haven't been properly tested. His tragic fate led to more oversight and regulation in the health industry, but it came at a great cost. Do you think the health industry is safer today, or are there still dangers we should be aware of? Our final story takes us to New York City, where a tragic altercation unfolded on a subway platform in 2012. The subway system, a place where millions of people commute daily, can sometimes be unpredictable and dangerous. For 58-year-old Ki-Suk Han, an ordinary day turned into a nightmare after a brief encounter with a stranger. This is the story of how a confrontation on a busy platform turned fatal, and the controversial photo that followed, sparking debate across the nation. On the afternoon of December 3rd, 2012, Ki-Suk Han was at the 49th Street subway station in Manhattan. It was a typical, bustling New York day, with people rushing to catch trains, buried in their phones or listening to music, minding their own business. Among the crowd was a 30-year-old man named Naeem Davis. At some point, Han and Davis began arguing. No one knew what started it, but witnesses described the argument as heated, with both men shouting at each other. As tensions rose, people nearby began to move away from the two men. In a busy city like New York, public disputes are not uncommon, and most commuters prefer to stay out of any potential conflict. However, what began as a verbal exchange quickly escalated. Without warning, Naeem Davis pushed Ki Suk Han onto the subway tracks. In an instant, what had been a simple argument turned into a life-or-death situation. Han, now on the tracks, desperately tried to climb back onto the platform, but he was struggling. The people on the platform screamed for help, but most were frozen in place, shocked by what had just happened. At this moment, a freelance photographer named R. Umar Abbasi, who happened to be on the platform, noticed the approaching train. In a desperate attempt to warn the train operator, Abbasi started taking photos with his camera, hoping the bright flash would alert the conductor to stop the train in time. But it was too late. The train barreled into the station, striking Ki Suk Han. The scene was chaotic, and the horror of what had just happened left the entire platform in stunned silence. In a matter of seconds, an argument had turned into a deadly accident. The media quickly seized on the story. However, what shocked people even more was the photo that emerged the next day. One of the pictures taken by Umar Abbasi moments before Han was struck by the train made the front page of the New York Post. The headline read "Doomed," and the image showed Han just seconds before his death, with the train approaching in the background. This photo sparked outrage. Many people questioned why Abbasi was taking pictures instead of trying to help Han. The ethics of the media were called into question, with some arguing that the image was sensationalist and disrespectful, while others said it captured the harsh reality of the situation. Meanwhile, Naeem Davis was arrested and charged with manslaughter. During the trial, Davis claimed that Han had been drunk and aggressive, and that he had pushed him in self-defense. Witnesses supported the claim that Han had been acting erratically, and after a lengthy legal battle, Davis was acquitted of all charges. The incident left the city grappling with questions of personal responsibility, safety in public spaces, and how quickly life can be taken away in a moment of anger. Here's the controversial photo that captured the tragic final moments of Ki Suk Han's life. The tragedy of Ki Suk Han's death serves as a powerful reminder of how quickly situations can spiral out of control in public spaces. What started as an argument ended in unimaginable loss, leaving behind unanswered questions and a photo that will be remembered for years to come. If you found these stories thought-provoking, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more strange, dark, and mysterious tales. And let me know in the comments, what did you think of these stories? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.